Good morning. I'd like to open today's meeting and welcome everyone in the gallery and also those joining us online via the live stream. Just a reminder to everyone, this is an official chamber of government decision-making, a very special place, and we ask that you please respect that with silence in the gallery. I invite you now to stand as Councillor Law acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. Councillor Law.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning, everyone. I wish to acknowledge, on behalf of the Sunshine Coast Council, the Jinnaburra and Kabi Kabi peoples who have been the custodians and the caretakers of this land for millennia. And the truth-telling and the stories that they share with us guide us still today as we work hard to care for, protect our lands and waters that we call home, that is the home for the Kabi Kabi and Jinnaburra people and everyone who calls the Sunshine Coast home today, no matter where they come from and when they arrived here. We have a lot to learn and they have a lot to teach us and they want to teach us. And as we learn and make decisions today, let us remember the legacy and the knowledge that they are so willing and wanting to share with us as we go forward and care for the land.
Thank you. If you're able, please remain upstanding as I invite Dylan Asmus from the Stella Maris Catholic Parish to provide us with a blessing. Welcome.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we ask that you bless this meeting and the councillors here present. We ask that you give them your gift of wisdom. We ask that you bless and protect them as they serve their community. And we ask that you continue to grant the Sunshine Coast the gift of peace. And we ask that no matter what, we are given the gift of understanding and wisdom to live together, to continue to grow this wonderful place you have given us. We ask all this in the name of Jesus our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Would you please remain upstanding as we acknowledge the recent passing of a council employee, Ken Jones. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is with a heavy heart and deep sadness that I share the unexpected passing of our dear friend and council colleague, Ken Jones. A genuinely kind and positive presence whose warmth touched everyone fortunate enough to work alongside him. We're honoured today to have Ken's family with us, his partner Andrea and sons David and Ben, as well as his brother. On behalf of council and our entire community, we extend our deepest condolences and want you to know you are in our thoughts and hearts. Your presence here is a testament to Ken's lasting legacy and impact and the strength of your family. Since joining Council's Digital and Information Services branch in January 2007, Ken has been a valued member for more than 18.5 years, most recently serving as a business systems analyst in the Information Technology PMO team. He supported the asset management program in particular. His dedication and expertise have helped shape the future council services for our community and for our region, leaving a legacy for which we are deeply grateful. Ken was known for his kindness, positivity, and genuine care for others. His infectious smile and uplifting spirit made a lasting impression on everyone he met, and he always put others first. To David and Ben, Ken was always incredibly proud of you both and spoke of you with great affection. He would want you to know that beyond career achievements, it is the positive impact you have on others that truly matters. Ken's pride in you was evident to everyone who knew him, and his legacy lives on through the values I'm sure he instilled in you. Today, we see the lasting impression Ken has made on all our lives, and we are eternally grateful for that gift. We will be undertaking a tree planting ceremony next month at Cotton Tree, a place of special meaning to Ken and his family, in honour and lasting memory of our beloved colleague and friend. We will miss Ken deeply, not only as a valued colleague, but as a wonderful person whose beautiful attitude to life inspired us all. His legacy will continue to shape our community and our hearts. Valet Ken Jones. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Please take your seats. Item 3, I note we are all here and Councillor Winston Johnston is joining us via Teams today. We move to item 4. Councillors, would someone please move receipt and confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on 18 September 2025. Councillor Dixon moved. Councillor seconder Tim Burns. Thank you, councillors. All those in favour? Thank you. That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Johnston. I could see you there. Thank you. There's no mayoral minute today, and so I move to the conflicts of interest. Councillors, I remind you of the requirements of the Local Government Act of 2009, which sets out how councillors' conflicts of interest are managed for local government matters. These requirements apply to how we deal with such matters at this meeting. Should you have a conflict of interest in relation to an agenda item, please raise it at the commencement of that item. There are no presentations today. Item 7. Now, Councillor Landsberg, I believe you'd like to move a procedural motion today.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move that Council suspend standing orders to consider item 10, petitions next on the agenda, to be followed by item 8.2, residential tenancy agreements, Sunshine Coast holiday parks, due to public interest.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Councillors, can I have a seconder? Councillor Bunnag. I will now put that motion to the vote, the procedural motion. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 10 will now be considered next. Item 10 is the petitions, and Councillor Landsberg, I believe you have several petitions to table today.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, first petition I have is from the residents of the Dicky Beach Holiday Park, and this is actually a signed petition as well as, so we have 61 signed signatures and 843 online petition signatures. And this is to liaise with state government to renew or extend the current 20-year lease between council and the Department of Natural Resources and Mines for another 20 years. Leave the status quo to protect the current living circumstances of the permanent section of the Dicky Beach Holiday Park as they are. I'd just like to present that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Suarez, thank you. Now, Councillor Landsberg, did you wish to speak to the petition?
In respect to, it'll be obviously the next item on the agenda. Madam Mayor, I'm sure I'll have plenty of time to speak to that agenda item, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll now put that motion to the vote. That is receiving the petition here today. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. We'll now pass that to the CEO. Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Another petition.
Yes, so this petition, councillors, is the petition to find another location for the Caloundra Information Centre. And this is a signature. So this was really dedicated towards, this petition towards the businesses of the Caloundra CBD and the importance of what the Visitor Information Centre has contributed to our local visitation numbers and obviously information for our, not only locals, but our visitors as well. So I'd just like to move that, thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a seconder? Councillor Burns. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Landsberg, would you like to speak to this petition now?
Thank you. So for over 2 decades, the Caloundra Visitor Information Centre has been beating our heart of our own town. Powered by a dedicated team of volunteers who offer more than just directions and brochures, but they offer a connection, a warmth, an accompanying and an encouraging community in Caloundra. With over 150 local businesses backing this petition, Council has been asked to support the continuation of this vital service. Currently, with the building at 77 Balcock Street, we'll see the demolition of that building early next year, and that will continue on with the works of the new town square. But the importance of the information centre must be maintained. Our volunteers, many who are just retirees, simply cannot just be left aside, and they actually contribute an amazing benefit to our community. Since reopening in 2021 after VSC closed down 5 information centres across the coast, the centre has averaged 442 inquiries per month. 15...
Councillor Landsberg, that's your minute.
Okay, 15 a day, and also not just from tourists but our locals as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Okay, I will now put the motion to the vote. That is to receive this petition. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. If you'd like to pass that on to the CEO. And a third petition, Councillor Landsberg.
Yes, Madam Mayor. So this is a petition from lead petitioner Tai An Nguyen, and this is a petition with 911 signatures, and it is the respectfully requesting Sunshine Coast Council to allow Lamkin Lane Espresso Bar to continue using its long-standing outdoor dining area located at 31 Lamkin Lane, Caloundra.
Okay, can I have a seconder? Councillor Burns for that. Thank you. Councillor Landsberg, did you wish to speak to that petition?
Thank you. I'll be within the minute, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
This outdoor space has been part of the cafe experience for over 15 years and plays an important role in shaping the unique, vibrant laneway culture that makes downtown Caloundra so special. It is more than just a place to enjoy a meal. It is a welcoming, family-friendly space where locals and visitors gather, connect and build community. The outdoor area is also vital to the business's viability. It supports the livelihoods of 11 local staff and contributes significantly to the local economy. Without it, the cafe would lose over 80% of its seating capacity and may be forced to reduce operations, putting jobs and futures of our beloved community hub at risk.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. I'll now put that motion to the vote to receive the petition. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Okay. Councillor Hungerford, I believe you have a petition to table.
I have a petition here, 13 pages with 104 signatures, asking that Council act on the excessive volume of traffic in Tulip Lane by implementing numerous traffic calmers, including raised crossings at each end and possibly in the middle section of Tulip Lane. Also, amongst other things, to reduce the slow traffic. We strongly suggest reducing the speed from 50 down to 40 or 30 kilometres an hour also. This is because a serious safety concern in Tulip Lane and the surrounding streets residents has been pointed out in numerous emails to Council this year. Increasing traffic volumes on our streets is something everyone's dealing with, and to turn it into an obstacle course wouldn't really be an answer. I have pictures on here.
Councillor, just before you speak to it, let's just... you've moved that. Councillor Dixon has seconded that motion. Now you can speak to it for a minute.
I have a few pictures on here to work with the transport people. We already have traffic islands in the road, substantial ones. I believe one of these could be modified into a safety refuge, and it's near the 2 bus stops that people are talking about. So that is a possible where we could dual, make one asset, do a dual purpose, rather than have to build a whole new one. So I'd like to pursue that idea as a possible improvement in Tulip Lane, but I do understand a lot of streets are getting the same problems as their population grows.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hungerford. I'll now put the motion to receive this petition to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. If you'd like to pass that over now to the CEO. Thank you all. Now, as per the procedural motion moved earlier, we will consider item 8.2 next, the residential tenancy agreements, Sunshine Coast Holiday Parks. And we welcome Mr. Collins. Thank you, and over to you.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity today to speak to you about Sunshine Coast Holiday Parks. Today I'm here seeking procedural alignment across our holiday park group. As you're aware, we have 6 holiday parks in iconic Sunshine Coast destinations. We welcome about 120,000 visitors a year, contributing greatly to our local economy, especially in tourism. Within our holiday parks, we have 1,377 caravan and camping sites, 121 of which are currently occupied by long-term residents. The bulk of those residents are actually at the Dicky Beach Holiday Park. We have a lease on the residential area of that holiday park with the state at the moment that is due to expire on the 18th of May 2026. The tenants leased the land from us on a fixed-term residential agreement, but the state retains ownership of that land, managed by council. At 5 of our 6 holiday parks, we have a natural attrition clause, which means when a tenant chooses to leave the site, they take all of their personal belongings with them, including their dwelling. Dicky Beach is the exception. Currently in Dicky Beach, residents have the opportunity to sell their dwelling, for it to remain in situ, and for the new owner to reside in the holiday park. We're seeking to align our process across all 6 holiday parks. We have met with the residents recently, and 2 key areas of concern are raised. One is the guaranteed tenure of their site. They want to protect their homes. We get that. We have indicated to them and hopefully made it very clear there is no intention to ask anyone to leave or kick anyone out at this stage. The other issue that has been raised is the value of their homes. They still own or retain ownership of the dwelling, and the state still owns the land. So outside our area. The recommendation here before you is to receive and note the report titled Residential Tenancy Agreement, Sunshine Coast Holiday Parks, and endorse the natural attrition approach across all 6 of our holiday parks. Thank you.
Councillor Landsberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move a motion to the officer's recommendation, please.
Yes, go ahead, councillor.
Councillors, I'd like to move this motion, and obviously it's up on the screen there for you, and I'll read through it. Receive and note the report titled Residential Tenancy Agreements, Sunshine Coast Holiday Parks. Recognise the unique legacy, social value and community contribution of the long-term residents at the Dicky Beach Holiday Park, and affirm Council's intent to support their continued residence subject to planning and land management processes. C. Do not apply the natural attrition process to Dicky Beach Holiday Park, acknowledging that the site serves a distinct and valuable role in providing affordable housing and community stability and should be considered separately from the other Sunshine Coast holiday parks. D. Request the Chief Executive Officer to develop a management plan for the Dicky Beach Holiday Park that 1. Enables ongoing residential use at the Dicky Beach Holiday Park within the current state leased area, and 2. Recognises the park's contribution to affordable housing and community wellbeing. And E. In development of the management plan, ensure compliance with the Land Act of 1994, the Human Rights Act of 2019, the Sunshine Coast Planning Scheme 2014, and relevant trust land guidelines.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Natoli. Thank you. Councillor Landsberg, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. Councillors, I'm bringing this motion up for consideration due to our commitment in maintaining a sense of belonging and security for the residents of the Dicky Beach Holiday Park. We are today dealing with past legacy decisions that have enabled a whole community of people to reside in Dicky Beach. Many years ago, when the Council of the day sold off or transitioned caravan parks on the Sunshine Coast at Golden Beach, Kings Beach and Tripconey Caravan Park, the residents were relocated to Dicky Beach. We have members of our community who have lived in the park for over 40 years. This park has continued to provide affordable accommodation for valued residents who contribute to our local economy, whether grandparents caring for their grandkids so that the parents can hold down employment, key workers in our construction industry, social service workers, carers, and of course, retirees. This existing use is a valuable resource to our community. The natural attrition process has been in place since 2006, as referred to in the report, across 5 of the 6 council holiday parks on the Sunshine Coast. What makes Dicky Beach Holiday Park different from the other 5 parks is that a legacy decision by the then Caloundra City Council on the 27th of April 2006 set the guidelines for the establishment of permanent caravan sites. This decision set in train the approval of building works on permanent sites, which needed professionally prepared plans and building applications to be approved by Park Management and Council. These plans were also submitted to the Department of Natural Resources and Mines for owner's consent. What we have now in the park are structures that are not removable and are all individually serviced by sewerage, water, electricity and NBN connectivity. These sites would need to be demolished as indicated in the officer's report to abide by Council's intentions to move towards the natural attrition process once the tenant has departed. My question to Council is why, during one of the worst periods of a housing crisis we have experienced in living memory, should we be removing this style of affordable living in our community? Who cannot afford the average median house price, which currently sits at $1.1 million, and individuals earning approximately $130,000 annually are experiencing rental stress, spending over 36% of their income on rent. Council's Housing and Homelessness Action Plan, endorsed in 2023, was an advocacy document to establish new initiatives to address a more secure housing future for our community. What have we delivered since then? And I acknowledge Councillor Taylor, 22 dwellings on council land at Markoola, a wonderful project, but so much more we need to deliver for affordable housing. Councils, we need to be bold and brave dealing with a problem that is not going away anytime soon. The rationale and purpose of this report is to align Council's approach to addressing long-term tenancy agreements across its holiday park network. Why now and why so early before Council develop a new land management plan with the state government, who have already stated in a letter to the local state member, and I quote, "Whether the term lease is reissued or not has no effect on the permanent resident's right to reside on the reserve. The Council can allow the permanent residents to reside on the land if the Council, as trustee, the land in conjunction with the guidelines for the state statutory body and local government trustees." We are dealing with lives and properties of people here. Let's not forget why we are elected. If we are ever going to be known as a compassionate council, now is the time for you to step up and support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Councillor Bunnag.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, and good morning. I have a couple of questions to start, please. I'd like to ask a question firstly in regards to Councillor Landsberg's statement to you, Mr Brooks, around demolition of properties. So at other holiday parks, does Council have to undergo a demolition of properties that were permanent? For example, in places like Majimba and Tulip once the tenant leaves?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. If the dwelling is in a reasonable condition, no, we don't. It depends on the state of the dwelling. In most cases, at Majimba in particular, in a case we're dealing with at the moment, the dwelling is not habitable and it will be demolished.
Thank you. So, through the Chair, so would that indicate that it is a fixed dwelling similar to what we see at Dicky Beach in places like Majimba?
Madam Mayor, yes, it is, Councillor. It would be a fixed dwelling, which is contrary to the actual rules of the park.
Thank you. I also have a couple of questions about the human rights assessment. I'm not sure who the best officer is to direct that to, but I'll ask the question anyway. So, in the officer's report, it referenced a Human Rights Act assessment under Section 58, and this statement of, I'm reading from it, this statement of compatibility is made with respect to a proposed decision to prevent long-term residents with leases at the Dicky Beach Holiday Park from selling their non-fixed dwellings for others to remain on site, the proposed decision is compatible with the human rights protected by the Act. So my question is, has a human rights assessment been done on this proposal, which is essentially treating residents in Dicky Beach differently from residents in all of our other holiday parks who are permanent residents?
And through you, Madam Mayor, I might refer to my colleague, Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Colley.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks for the query. So the question, just to be clear, is we've done a human rights assessment for the motion that was presented by Mr. Collins. Is the question, have we done a human rights assessment on the alternate motion?
Yes, through the chair, that's right. So the question is, have we done a human rights assessment to determine whether treating residents in Dicky Beach differently from other permanent residents in our holiday parks would be consistent with the Human Rights Act? And in particular, I note Section 15, subsection 4 of the Human Rights Act, which is regarding recognition and equality before the law. Every person has the right to equal and effective protection against discrimination.
The CEO, Mr. Baker, is going to take that question, Councillor.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Bunnag, and I can clarify, no, we have not.
So through the chair, we would essentially be being asked to make a decision around human rights without actually knowing whether we're in contravention of the Human Rights Act.
Councillor.
Thank you. And my final question to you, Mr. Collins, is regarding paragraph E of the motion. It says, ensure compliance with the Land Act 1994. Given that the Land Act requires us to make and manage this as recreational camping space, the advice that we've received from the department is quite clear on that. How could adopting this proposal be considered consistent with the Land Act at any time?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor. The department have advised that it's an inconsistent use of the land, and with the appropriate management plan, they are okay with us to do that, to keep it as an inconsistent use. But we need that management plan to determine how we are going to manage the land into the future.
Thank you. And last question. E also makes reference to the Human Rights Act, and with reference to your previous answer, we're not unsure if we actually can comply with the Human Rights Act by adopting this particular motion.
Yeah, that appears to be correct, Councillor.
Thank you. I might speak to the motion now. Thank you, Councillor Landsberg, for presenting your motion. I appreciate it, and I'm sure my colleagues do as well. In the past in this chamber, I've said that we are not a perfect organisation. We're a good one. I don't think I can actually say that we've been a very good organisation or council with respect to the way we've conducted ourselves with respect to Dicky Beach over a long period of time. And I think that's a really, really horrible position for this council to be in and for residents. We find ourselves in a self-made mess, and unfortunately this motion actually proposes to perpetuate that. And in my view, that's wrong. For decades, successive councils, starting with Caloundra City and now Sunshine Coast, have allowed 82 permanent dwellings to be bought and sold at Dicky Beach to permanent tenants, despite a recognition that this state land is for recreational camping purposes. Across the region's other holiday parks, we have stopped this practice of allowing permanent residents to on-sell, and yet we've continued to let this occur at Dicky Beach. With that said, today is an opportunity to make a tough but fair decision that reflects a consistent, equitable and responsible approach across our holiday park network for the whole region. Nothing in what I say or do here is an easy decision, but it's in my view the one we should be taking. We should adopt and pay close attention to the written advice that the state government provided to the then Maroochy Council in 2005, when natural attrition was applied to the other holiday parks across our region. And I'm going to read from a letter that was provided to the CEO of Maroochy Shire Council at the time, and this is publicly available. It's contained within the additional information that's been provided for this meeting. Quote, reserves for camping and recreation are set apart for use by the general community by camping and recreation in accordance with the provisions of the Land Act 1994. By definition, these reserves are to be used for recreational and holiday camping, and hence the permanent occupation by individuals on a permanent basis would be contrary to the dedicated purposes of the reserve. It is recognised, however, that permanent residents do occupy some reserves in various parts of the state, and these residents need to be dealt with sensitively. Where there are existing permanent residents in occupation of these reserves, this department will work cooperatively with Council by not allowing any new permanent residents to be established. To achieve this, the sale, purchase of caravans in situ on reserves must be curtailed so as to not perpetuate an incorrect perception of permanency or entitlement to occupy the land by permanent park residents and those members of the public seeking to purchase and reside in caravans that are located on the reserves." End quote. I recognise that the residents impacted will not like hearing this. Last week, I went down to Dicky Beach and listened to their stories. I also sought feedback from permanent residents who were affected by natural attrition in Majimba Holiday Park, which is in my own division. Throughout my legal career, before being a councillor, consultation was described to me by Fair Work commissioners as a chance to change the mind of the decision maker, not make it for them. What I heard last week didn't change my mind, but reaffirmed in my mind the importance of council making this decision today to ensure that council does not continue to perpetuate the perception that this is freehold land and property rights associated with the land attached to them. What I heard from residents in Dicky Beach made me very angry and upset that as an organisation we have allowed this to continue. So it is with a deep sense of sorrow and hurt for the residents who are here today that we have to make this decision, but we cannot let it go on and linger in perpetuity. At the forum, we were also asked why council was doing this and why we wanted, quote, procedural alignment, which is a pretty horrible term if you ask me. So let me put it in a different term. Consistency and equitable treatment. I recognise that some people would like to make a distinction and an argument that people in Dicky Beach should be treated differently from other permanent residents across the coast. But in my view, this is wrong, not just morally, but legally as well. Dicky Beach is special, but it's not more special than places like Tulip and Majimba, where permanent residents have been impacted already by natural attrition. They cannot sell their properties. And to suggest that we are kicking people out, moving people on in the midst of a housing crisis is just plain wrong. The fact that we still have permanent residents living in places like Majimba since 2005, when natural attrition kicked in, is testimony to the fact that we are not kicking people out by making this decision. So unfortunately, I can't support Councillor Landsberg's motion today. This decision will place on my colleagues and on members in the community. But from my perspective, this is the right decision to be making to ensure a fair and equitable decision-making process across our region.
Thank you, Councillor Bunag. Councillor Hungerford.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I come up from the angle of my financial hat. I see in the finance and resourcing the current revenue from the 82 residential sites at Dicky Beach is $871,000 compared to equivalent 82 sites at the same caravan park would be 1.7 million. So council's making a substantial loss on income with this current arrangement. Would that be correct?
That indicates that, councillor.
And that would be a substantial discount to the general rental market.
Through you, Madam, yes, it is under the current rental market.
Correct. Another one that concerns me, I'm doing questions first and then I'll speak to it,
Thank you, Councillor.
is currently long-term tenants at the beach caravan park can sell their fixed dwellings and allow new owners to continue to live on site with the potential for capital gain. The price and sale is inflated by the location and amenity of the overall property. So being prime beachfront in a tourist area would be taken into account by the real estate agents in setting prices for these properties, even though it's Crown land for private gain. Would that be correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, the amenity of the property is no doubt contributing to the higher sale prices.
And in that case, are these properties paying any rates?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, they don't pay rates, they pay a rental fee under their residential tenancy agreements.
Rental fee, no rates. So I take it the waste and levies and all the things that go with rates are not being paid by these people either.
Through you, Madam Mayor, they are covered by the overarching holiday park, councillor.
So to me, that's the rest of the community, the rest of the ratepayers are subsidising this. Do they have, using the facilities there, so water and everything else, do they have separate water meters and pay for things like the rest of the people do in community?
Through you, Madam Mayor, they are independently metered for electricity, not water. Most of them are actually sewered and plumbed properly.
So that's been picked up by the caravan park as well.
Madam Mayor, yes, councillor.
When I look at this, I get the feeling this is like winning the lottery. I'll speak now. Because what other ratepayers have we got would like to have lifetime rates free and not have to pay for their services and be able to sell their land like this is being treated like freehold, even though it's Crown land. To me, there's a fundamental disparity here between what the rest of the community does and is subsidising this and these people getting that capital gain for no outlay, especially no rates for a lifetime. I'm sure our ratepayers out there, and I thought to myself, how do I explain this to my community, the other ratepayers? And worse still, how do I justify it? I cannot. This is an anomaly, as written from the state government. By definition, these reserves are to be used for recreational and holiday camping, and hence the permanent occupation by individuals on a permanent basis will be contrary to the dedicated purpose of the reserve. This is a legacy from previous council. Amalgamation, but this should have never been allowed in the first place. Because as my colleague here has stated, that's treating one group of residents differently to another and having one group effectively subsidising it. Fundamentally wrong. Should have never happened in the first place. In looking at bringing it into the same as the other caravan parks, we are recognising the situation here. We're not kicking people out. They can stay there under the current arrangement, but can't on-sell it to someone else and have them get the same rights. And I think that's fair, because that's what we're doing in the other caravan parks. In recognition of where we've come from, we're being respectful, we are being compassionate, and we're allowing them to live the rest of their time out there until they move on, which is what we do in the other caravan parks. So this is about consistency and respect for the entire community. I cannot support this motion here. It means we're just going to do more of the same. Just keep it going. It's something that's wrong and shouldn't have happened in the first place. But that's disrespecting the rest of the community that's subsidising it. So I cannot support this. I believe the officer's recommendation is the responsible recommendation and the fairest one in the community to bring everything in line and treat everyone with the same respect. This motion doesn't do that. So I cannot support it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Natoli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, Darren, how many vacant sites do we currently have in that permanent area?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we currently have 3 vacant sites in that area, councillor. Two residents recently moved into a retirement home or an assisted living facility, and one resident has passed away.
Yeah, I met with some of the residents recently, and they've sent me photographs of at least potentially 10 sites that are vacant at the moment. Would that be true?
Madam, yes, there are 2 sites that we recently were signed back to us or handed back to us, and we have turfed them and cleaned them up.
So what happens with those sites during the year?
Through you, Madam Mayor, during our peak season, councillor, we don't have enough tourist sites, so they will be overflow sites in the interim.
So how many weeks of the year would that be?
12 weeks a year, councillor.
12 weeks of the year. So the other 40 weeks of the year they stay vacant?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, yes, correct.
So the lease that we offer the residents, like the agreement, is that for how long?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it has been staggered. The first lease was for 2 years. The next one was for 18 months. The lease that we're going to go into in the new year will be for 12 months.
12 months. So it's not much different than what most people, if they're renting a property, would be similar.
Madam Mayor, yes, councillor.
So, Madam Mayor, I might speak to the motion. I stand here and support Councillor Landsberg. For those who don't know, that I was actually the Mayor of Maroochy Shire in 2005 when we brought in that natural attrition. Circumstances back then, nearly 20 years ago, were completely different than what it is today. In terms of affordability, rentals, purchase of homes, there were many options, a lot more than what we have today. The coast has grown significantly, and unfortunately, housing supplies have dried up, land has dried up, the cost of housing has almost doubled in the last 6 years. So we're in a crisis, an absolute crisis at the moment. To think that we potentially have 10 sites that sit there vacant for 40 weeks a year, when we have many people sleeping in their cars at the moment. The biggest problem facing people of age, particularly women 55 and over, is the lack of affordable accommodation. As a portfolio councillor, along with Councillor Landsberg, caravan parks come under our portfolio. And there would be opportunities for us to increase the revenue in the permanent area if we were to sit down and work out through a plan. I'm not suggesting that, we treat this land any different than some of the other parks, but I think we have to accept the decisions of the past and the legacies that Caloundra made a completely different decision than what Maroochy Shire did at the time, and I respect that. And I think it's created a lot of issues for us and a lot of concerns for me. I have waved from the position of where Councillor Bonet has been to the position of where Councillor Landsberg. And that's because I weigh up, I suppose, circumstances and the legacy decisions. And when I was elected, I got all the councillors to sign an agreement. And one aspect of that agreement was that we, as a council then, would accept the decisions of the past. Whether they were good or bad, we accepted them. And I think, in hindsight, it's terrible when people enter into bad agreements. For people to be selling things that, it's not freehold land. That tenancy, as you said, 18 months, it's not. For someone to be investing hundreds of thousands of dollars in a piece of in housing, that technically decisions could change and that legacy decisions may not be honoured. We can't speak for future councils, and they're obviously an issue. But I think the management plan has to be worked through. I'm not suggesting that at this stage I'm supporting a continuation of permanency, but what that looks like and how it is in the future, I think that management plan has to be worked out, and I sort of support that process of at least establishing that we will have permanent during this crisis, will enable us to look at how we can generate more revenue, not just in Dicky Beach, but Majimba is underperforming, and there's opportunities to put housing, affordable housing, within our caravan parks. And we can do our little bit. It won't fix the housing problem, but we can do our little bit to take those people out of their cars, people who are camping, doing it rough. There are some options within our existing caravan parks. So I hope councillors understand that, almost 20 years ago I made a different decision, but circumstances were different. And today I make this decision based on what I think are legacy decisions that were made by Caloundra. We have to honour those and understand the complexities of those, as be it that it's not as fair, but for 19 years there's been a disparity between the other caravan parks and Dicky Beach. So I support Councillor Landsberg, and I would hope the other councillors would allow the opportunity for the officers to work through the management plan and come up with something that we can all live with.
Thank you, Councillor Natoli. Councillor Burns.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Through you, this is incredibly difficult, and none of it actually sits well with me. my values, my upbringing is with a single mum, youngest of 5, in Redcliffe, represent. And it was really tough. And so for me, I've even worked in social and affordable housing for quite a period of time. And I understand what the struggles are for people. And yet I also have a really strong value that actually says fairness is really important, and consistency and a coherency when it comes to systems and organisations is actually where we can also provide safety and stability for people moving forward. And often I think when our systems and our processes seem inconsistent or muddled, it actually creates instability moving forward for people, and that to me is a real struggle. I 100% acknowledge that the situation we're in regarding affordable housing is not been seen for a long time, and I think it's also important to note that within that, the situation we're in regards to affordable housing, or the lack of it, is not actually council's doing. We, along with every other region and every other part of this country, are in this muddle and this challenge of housing because of respective decades of policy decisions by federal governments, underinvestment through state governments, into the appropriate social, affordable community housing that we require to create a balanced society, an opportunity for everyone to thrive. It is not council's doing. Equal to that, the legislation is clear around, for us as a local government, and what our role is in regards to affordable housing and the provision of it. And as has already been expressed, we've actually made significant efforts as a local government to provide space and site for formalised, well-considered affordable housing, and that's been successful. And I know that, Madam Mayor, Councillor Law, that you've been working very closely in the last few months with the Housing Minister and the local members up in Nambour to really explore alternatives. I think we're doing a good job in that regard. However, for me, I find the struggle is that we are not removing affordable housing from our region. These residences will continue. They will have a tenure. The evidence of council's work over the last 20 years in the other parks shows that we have an appetite to support the long-term stability of residents in those areas. So we are acting with a compassion, and yet I feel like the disappointment and my frustration is that for decades, previous councils have failed to take the necessary action to abide and ensure that the way we manage and use trust land in a way that's consistent with its intended purpose has been ignored. And we've kicked the can down the road again and again, and not just in this situation, but in many others, to make difficult decisions that are actually going to be right for the council, right for the community, and actually intend for the public good. And so as much as I hate this decision, much as I don't like it, but I can't support the motion, the alternative motion put forward by Councillor Landsberg today, because I think it's important and incumbent on us to continue to actually provide a consistency and a certainty for our community, that this is how we go. And it recognises 162 other sites that across the region over the last 20 years that have been respectfully transitioned through this policy, and it's evidence that we have capacity to do so into the future. I think that is what will be important and right, acknowledging that we can retain and support people now in very good, reasonable, strong, affordable housing into the indefinite future through their rental tenancy agreements. So thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Landsberg, for your efforts in bringing this alternative motion and the way that you're actually representing the constituents in a really powerful way.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Councillor Law.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, a couple of questions, if I may. When the alternate motion was being introduced, there was a comment that the current lease that expires next year at this caravan park was the result of 3 other Caloundra caravan parks closing. Is that correct? And who was the owner of the land of those 3 caravan parks?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm unsure who owned it. I would suggest it would be Caloundra City Council at the time. I know with Kings Beach in particular, when that caravan park closed for the new embellishments down there, the residents were moved to Dicky Beach. I'm unsure about the other ones, Councillor, but I would imagine it would be Caloundra City Council.
Okay, thank you. So likely to be state land managed by council in the same manner?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would suggest so, Councillor, yes.
Okay, thank you. And just for absolute certainty, has anyone at any of the caravan parks since 2005 been forcibly removed, evicted, compelled to leave their dwelling on a site?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no long-term tenants have been evicted, so to speak, Councillor, no.
Okay, thank you. And there is no intention to introduce any kind of process like that in this. We are doing the same thing that was done since 2005 at other caravan parks.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that is the intention, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that troubles me with this process, troubles me with the alternate motion, is the ability to on-sell the dwelling in situ, which has a feeling of selling something that is not belonging to you. And this may be a question for Councillor Terry, is I don't see anything in the alternate motion that addresses what to me is at the base of this, is being allowed to sell something at that exact location and selling the notion of being there as if it's freehold land. I don't see a solution to that in your alternate motion. Is there one that I'm not recognising in what you've put up there?
Councillor Landsberg, would you answer that question?
Thank you, Councillor David. The wording of the alternate motion is to develop a management plan for Dicky Beach Holiday Park. And as part of that management plan with the state, that would be part of discussing what the value of these properties are worth. And that's an important part that we're discussing today. There's been discussions around financial contribution, compensation. Today is not the day to have that conversation, as far as I'm concerned. We do not know what the actual arrangement with the state would be. There are other arrangements done across with tiny homes, with co-ops, with land management agreements, that we should flush this out. And my concerns are that every resident in this park has a story, how they've ended up there. And we are aware that other councils in our LGA, Gold Coast in particular, have actually purchased properties back during that natural attrition process. It's not a discussion for today. It's highly emotive today. As I know, quite a few of us have met the residents, and I can understand that, but I would expect that to be flushed out prior to that land management agreement to be completed. And we only have to allow the residents 60 days notice before that land management plan in May next year. That's my concern. We brought this too early, and we still haven't consulted properly. 3 days before the prior OM, which we were able to delay for 1 month, was when the residents were engaged. 3 days. Not acceptable.
So, no other questions?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Ms Fielding, were you going to respond further on that? Just checking before we go back to you, Councillor Law. Okay.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just want to offer that the land management plan can't govern the sale of the chatteralls over the property. So we are constrained in what we can do under the land management plan. It is a private sale of property.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that point, if I could.
Regarding sale. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Law, no further questions. You're reserving your right to speak. Okay. So we'll move on now to then Councillor Dixon.
Good morning, Madam Mayor. You know, one thing I like about this job is the fact that you get to hear many diverse and different views. And I think that's the strength of council. If we all had the same view, I don't think we'd be making the right decisions for the region. In fact, sitting here this morning, I learned a lot from my colleagues in their debate. I valued the comments of Councillor Burns deeply because he's, you know, in terms of councillors, this gentleman right here has certainly worked extremely close with the community and understands it. And he brings a very great balance to council. I think one thing I need to accept here is responsibility. As a councillor, I've allowed this to happen. I've been a councillor for 19 years now, this month, and I've allowed this to happen. In fact, I've allowed people to invest money, borrow money from the bank and invest on this site. I've let them do that through my decisions. So I need to accept my responsibility for allowing this to happen. I've had conversations this week with people on the phone in tears. They've been very, very upset because there's situations where they may look to exit this holiday park but leave with no money to go into nursing or retirement homes, no money to pass on to their family. And I've let that happen. In fact, I've let them borrow money and invest on this site. Council's allowed the issuing of permits and approvals, sewage, water, NBN connections. We've allowed that to happen. We've allowed these people to embellish these sites. And I've heard the counter arguments. This is not fair. You know, we've got people in other holiday parks that aren't being treated equally. But I also talk about the relevance, and Councillor Natoli talked about the relevance of 20 years later. Never have we been in a time where rent is so expensive that I would struggle to afford to be renting right now. I couldn't get a home loan for the home that I've got at Palmview. I couldn't do that again now. I'm in a really good spot. In fact, I turned up today and I had breakfast and I had the fuel in the car and I've come to work. Things were easy for me. Things will be easy today for my family. But I don't know about these other people in the holiday park. I don't know about all their circumstances. I think in some respects we can take it for granted that we are in a really good position and the people that we are elected to represent may not be doing it as well as us. So I always try and bring the social and human factor to this job because really that's all that matters. We can make money, lose money, we can impact people, but I think it's impacting people that hurts the most. And that's the type of stuff that keeps me up at night. And in fact, that's why I invest a lot of my time on these problems. Potentially, Madam Mayor, we need to look at our fees and charges. You know, we've heard today that there's potentially some really great outcomes that these residents are getting through sewer and water and whatnot. Do we not revisit some of those charges for the facility? If Councillor Hungerford believes there's a really great deal, do we try and make it a little bit fairer and review some of that? Do we look at potentially paying some of these people out for the investments they've made? I don't believe we've had a discussion on that at all. I think there's a lot of water that needs to go under the bridge and discussions that need to be had rather than just accepting the officer's recommendation here today and saying, let's be done with it. We're not being done with it. We're dealing with people and these people matter and they matter to me. If it was an easy decision, I would just sit here and just vote with the officers and have nothing to say. But you can tell I've gotten to the floor today to raise my issues. And let me just say that I think Councillor Hungerford and Councillor Banag have raised some fantastic points. In fact, you'd look at their arguments and think, how could I go against that? They're logical arguments, and I respect their arguments. I respect Councillor Burns. I know that Councillor Natoli and Councillor Landsberg have brought some completely different arguments as well, and that's where I'd be looking to side today. But for me, this is about taking care of people, Madam Mayor. For me, I can't get past that. I need to accept my responsibility, the things that I've done in the past. I've allowed this to happen and I need to honour these people, and that's why I'm in the job. I can only speak for myself, and Madam Mayor, I think there's a lot of work we could do in the background for a better solution, and this is why I can't vote with the officer's recommendation and why I'm going to back Councillor Landsberg today.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Law.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I'll speak to the alternate motion that we've got before us, if I may. And there is not a shadow of a doubt that this is extremely difficult. However, it's caught up and mixed up in a lot of what it is to live on the Sunshine Coast, what it is to live in Australia today, where we are undoubtedly and without question in a horrendous housing crisis. And nobody will doubt that whatsoever. But where the doubt lies is how we fix that and how we resolve that. And I wish us to be extremely clear that it is the responsibility of the state and federal government to resolve the housing crisis of their creation. We developed a housing and homelessness action plan. That action plan was created, from my point of view, after probably 2 years' work with the community development section of this council, trying to find solutions to the slightly less of a housing crisis we had in 2021. Some of the proposals that were put forward was the purchasing of temporary dwelling structures to be located on Sunshine Coast Council's owned and operated caravan parks. And it didn't matter which way we went about trying to achieve that through council and state government, we were rejected, rebuffed, and it could not happen. What did come from that work and those conversations was our housing and homelessness action plan. Because we were told, you've got no plan, you don't know what you're doing. We were trying to solve an emerging crisis in 21, along with the issue of COVID and everything else that went with that. But allowing people to take up temporary residence in a permanent dwelling connected to sewer, water, power, phone, television, everything of modern living was rejected and refused. Bearing in mind that that land is exactly like this land, state land, held under the management by council. We could not get approval, it was not allowed. So perpetuating a situation is unhelpful. Nobody will become homeless as a result of the decision made today. Whichever the decision is, it's been affirmed, no one is going to be asked to leave their home. What we're actually talking about is perpetuating the sale of something that doesn't belong to people, which is the lot of land in Dicky Beach Caravan Park. And that there have been real estate agents willing to sell as if it is freehold land is unforgivable. And they have been doing it very recently, even knowing that what they're doing is misleading at best. And that leaves the difficulty that we've got in front of us today. But the easier part is that the rules and regulations about what we have to do and how we need to comply are extremely clear. And during a crisis in 2021, when I tried to work through that, it was a very hard no. And I can't imagine that changing from the state government if we don't proceed with the officer's recommendation. So I reiterate, it doesn't matter which way we go, no one will be made homeless from this location as a result of the decision. But I can't support the alternate motion, and I will foreshadow that I would put forward the officer's recommendation so that this can be resolved and everyone gets clarity of the rules that have been in place since 2005 on record within council and with council decisions, and also probably existing long before that time as well, because the requirements of the state crown land didn't change in 2005 so far as I can tell. I'm happy to be corrected on that if necessary, but that is certainly a long while, and it probably existed prior to that. So I appreciate what you're doing, Councillor Terry. I can't support it, and I foreshadow moving the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Suarez.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, this is a very, very challenging decision to be made today, and as a number of councillors have said, it impacts people, and no one wants to do that. I want to acknowledge that the long-term permanent residents who have made these caravan parks their homes have done so, and some of them for decades. These people have built strong community ties and invested in their dwellings, often with the hope of passing something on to their families, using the value to support themselves. Under the current arrangements, they retain the right to remain on site, as has been expressed a number of times, and I fully support that. However, the inability to on-sell their assets, such as caravans and annexes, has understandably caused distress. And the reason they have the inability to on-sell those assets is because they have tied them to the land. It limits their financial flexibility and it affects their future planning. Madam Mayor, I want to acknowledge and respect that as the local councillor, Councillor Landsberg is acting for the best interests of his residents in Division 2. And this is a difficult decision for all. That said, I also support consistency across our region. Other caravan parks with permanent residents, including in Division 9, the area that I represent, have not been permitted to on-sell since 2005. Aligning this site with that policy is about ensuring fairness, clarity and responsible land management. By supporting this alternative recommendation put forward by Councillor Lounsberg, all I can see happening is inequity and allowing the situation that's happening currently to the residents of the Dicky Beach Holiday Park, allowing this to happen perpetually into the future, where future residents will invest even more money and somewhere down the track be faced with this exact situation. By introducing natural attrition, we can honour existing residents while gradually transitioning the park to reflect its intended purpose. This approach respects both the individuals affected and the broader public interest. I believe this is the most compassionate and practical way forward. It is not the easy way forward, but I think it's the most responsible way forward. And I would welcome further discussion with Councillor Landsberg and this full council in how we can support residents through this change. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Councillor Broderick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to everybody who's brought everything this morning. As everybody in the room has mentioned, this is a really difficult decision for all of us to be in. Like we said, we don't want to be here, and we really recognise that this is a situation that requires compassion and one with sensitivity as well. And we recognise that it's a decision that's been going on, and we've got to the point now where a decision has to be made. And as Councillor Dixon has also made reference to, this is something that's happened, but now is it something that we stop or we continue to perpetuate into the next generation as well? So whilst I recognise, as Councillor Terry's brought to us, that we put this, have another lease for another 20 years, is it fair then for the next people to be making this decision rather than us kicking it down the track like we've spoken about today as well? So I, like everybody else, do not like being in this position today because it's a terrible decision that has to be made, and one that affects people, because people, like we said, we're here for the people, and we want to make sure that we're doing so compassionately and consistently. The other thing that stood out to me today is I don't believe this is a decision being made about affordable housing, and just making reference to what Councillor Law has said, because nobody has been asked to move. All of our residents can continue to live in the park until they want to, or until they no longer are able to. And I completely recognise the fact that some may find themselves in a position where they are unable to afford to move somewhere else, but we have got things and support systems in place that can help support those people through those financial and social decisions as well. We have things that we can do that later on down the track. And I also wanted to just make note of we've spoken a bit about today about the consistency and equity across the board. I do wonder what it would look like if we were to say today, no, Dicky Beach is completely different when we already have moved over 90 people, over 100 people actually, who have been residents in our other caravan parks who we suddenly say, I'm sorry, this one's just different, and they'll be expecting a reason as to why it's different. So it's really hard to make these decisions because when we make them, we're asked to make them in the overall public interest. So that public interest is right across our region and right across the Sunshine Coast. And even we've been talking about the Act being changed and that council can have an inconsistent use with that's correct. If there is an inconsistent use, and we can have a management plan in place. But even with that management plan in place, that management plan has to demonstrate equity and in the public interest and for the purpose on which this land was created, in this case, in recreation. So, Madam Mayor, thank you. This is such a difficult decision for all of our councillors to be in today. So thank you, Terry, for bringing this to us. Thank you to the officers for the work, and thank you to our councillor colleagues, and thank you to the community as well. Thank you for sharing your hearts and your stories with us because they do matter. And please know that this is not an easy decision for anybody in this room today. So thank you for being here, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. I rise to speak to the motion this morning. There are two ways to look at this issue. One way is through a consistency lens, a financial lens, a business lens, a lens that looks at what the site is meant to deliver in terms of outcomes for holiday makers and in terms of return to council. The other way of looking at this is with a people focus, with a view to the fact that 106 people live in this caravan park. They have purchased their homes. Some of them have taken out loans. They've been sold to by real estate agents. They've had building work completed with applications made to council. They've had that work certified in accordance with council regulation. Council has known about this. Councillor Dixon talks about feeling responsible. Council has seen real estate agents walking through the park, showing property. Council has been aware of the construction work happening in the park. 79 of these 82 homes could not be moved. Council has allowed these people to build extensions. Council has allowed people to invest, to buy and sell. Do the residents own the land? No. They know they don't own the land. They never have. It belongs to the state. We've heard Councillor Bunnag quote a letter from 2005 that residents are not allowed to be and to continue in semi-permanent residence. And yet they have for 20 years. We could negotiate another long-term agreement, ensuring an equitable and fair outcome at the end through this process. It needs to be worked through a land management plan. That is within our capability as a council. It is possible. This council could seek to do that. If you were a resident, you would know you didn't own the land, that it's just a short-term lease. But for 20 years, that lease has been renewed over and over again. As we've heard, these sites have sewerage, they have water, they have NBN and power. They're connected with roads and driveways built by council. Council has allowed this to happen, and in my view, council has been complicit. Council is responsible for this situation. At one of the meetings I attended, residents heard the story of Tina, who said what was once her refuge now feels like a source of fear. This has left her exhausted and deeply demoralised. Each resident who's lived under this same roof for decades feels this same devastation at the hands of council. I can't believe to describe how I felt, the letter from Tina continues. My heart sank, everything I've worked for, the savings I put in, suddenly worth nothing. We're not asking for much, just a bit of fairness and the chance to live without the fear of losing everything we've built. For me, this is about people. I promise to be part of a council that does things for people, not to people. And while this proposal is not throwing anyone out, residents would be able to live here for their whole lives. Should they move in a year or two, we are reducing the pool of affordable housing by moving to attrition. So yes, the current residents would be able to continue, but if we move to attrition, that number slowly reduces over time. So there will be less affordable housing in the future on that decision. Can you imagine the trauma that the residents of Dicky Beach Caravan Park would need to live through? Each time one of your neighbours passes away, their home is demolished in front of you because it cannot be removed. 79 of them cannot be removed. Can you imagine farewelling your neighbour because they've passed away and then the bulldozers move in? Because make no mistake, 79 of the 82 homes cannot be removed, and this is what would happen. The idea is to return the park to a tourist location for families. This is highly desirable. I get it. But we won't be able to put campers or holiday makers into that area until all of those permanent, semi-permanent homes are gone. There'll be no financial return to council for quite some time because the holiday makers in amongst the residential area isn't a good mix currently. This puts a hole in the financial argument that we have heard today, because those returns would not be forthcoming in the short term. And as you've heard, right now, we are in the middle of an often talked about housing affordability crisis. While housing is the remit of the state and federal governments, as we've heard, absolutely it is. Do we just wash our hands of it? I think not. In fact, I think the state could be allowing more parks with permanent sites, allowing smaller homes to be built, not less. We need to think differently about how housing is approached in this country, because what we're doing currently and have been doing for decades doesn't work, doesn't appear to be working right now. So let's not get rid of affordable, smaller homes by attrition at a time when replacing them elsewhere is impossible. So yes, this is a tricky decision. You've heard all of the councillors here today speak to that. It's one that's made on my mind for weeks, it's weighed there, and I cannot get over the fact that we councillors are here to serve the people, to serve our people, to represent our people and not deliver them trauma, financial hardship and despair. These are the things that matter. Our people matter. These are people's lives. As councillors, we are all independent. That is the absolute beauty of the local government system and democracy. We have the opportunity to vote with our conscience. I'm calling on you, councillors, to vote with your conscience today. Support the people of Dicky Beach Caravan Park as I will, and support this motion. Councillor Bunnag, do you have a question?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have two questions arising from your comments. Through the Chair, my first one to you, Mr Collins. Regardless of what motion is adopted today, when the new lease comes into effect after May 2026, will Council need to establish a land use plan, given that there is an inconsistent use regardless of whether we allow on-selling or not?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, Council, that's the case. We do need a management plan. As of 18th of May 2026, there will be no lease. It will fall under the trustee arrangement with the rest of the property.
Thank you. So just to confirm, regardless of outcome today, there has to be a land use management plan because we have permanent residents there.
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you. My last question through the chair. The Mayor made reference to not allowing or the inability to accommodate tourists in the holiday parks near permanent residents. At other holiday parks, is that the case? Do we accommodate tourists near, next to, close to permanent accommodation dwellings?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we do, Councillor.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
I have a further question. Thank you, Mr. Collins. In the Dicky Beach Caravan Park, do you allow holidaymakers in the midst of the residential area?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we do have, there are 6 sites, I don't know if you noticed, near the storage sheds that are available for overflow tourism, yes.
Thank you. Overflow tourism, so only at those very high peak times, is that correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor, correct.
And why is that? Is that because there is a conflict or a different usage pattern with the residential area when we're talking about such a large number as we are in Dicky Beach?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think there's 2 points here. One is the tourists don't want to be near the residents. They want to give them the privacy. And 2 is the residents don't want the tourists near them because of noise and other considerations.
So you've just described 2 situations where they don't want to be together. So in all likelihood, moving forward, we wouldn't be putting tourists in with the residential area, is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we currently have overflow sites at Dicky Beach that do get used during the peak times for tourists.
That are they separate, though? They're sort of separate near the storage sheds?
Yes, Madam Mayor, they're on the entrance to the property, to the residential area.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Councillor Natoli, do you have a question?
Just a question. In the other caravan parks, through you, Madam Mayor, to Darren, are all the permanents in one area or are they scattered throughout the park?
Through you, Madam Mayor, they are scattered throughout the park, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Broderick, a question?
Just following on from what Councillor Natoli said, are they scattered throughout the park only because they used to be permanent residency and now we're filled in those spaces between?
Through you, Madam Mayor, in most cases, yes, Councillor.
Yeah. And just in relation to, I know we've heard the term bulldoze a lot today, which just sends fear through everybody, as we're well aware. Could you just explain to us if those residential buildings are fit for purpose and can be lived in, will they be maintained after the residents move out?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that would be the intention if it's in an adequate space for as a dwelling.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Please maintain your silence in the gallery. Thank you. Just another question. If that happens, what would happen to those sites then if they're maintained as a dwelling?
Madam Mayor, I would imagine we'd either put them as tourist accommodation, would be probably the preferred option as a suggestion.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Collins. And please do maintain your silence in the gallery, please. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Landsberg, would you like to close?
Thank you. Through the chair. As we've just heard around the chamber, lots of different views on this motion presented this morning. But going back to the start and really, I suppose, understanding how this has occurred and touching on some comments around, decisions made 20 years ago. As part of the park management, we've allowed the building of modular homes. There was even an on-site builder that lived in the park for many, many years. And his sole purpose was to build demountable modular homes in the park. We hear a comment now that once the end of the tenancy, if obviously the tenant moves out, if that's a reasonable built structure, which many of them are in that park, they are very, very well fitted out and very well maintained. If they're empty and they're in still good condition, we're going to rent them out for short-term accommodation. Councillors, please bear in mind, holiday parks is one of our best performing assets. As a business unit, it returns millions of dollars of revenue to this council. And part of this report is looking at our financial income, what we can generate, and trying to look at other ways where we can actually improve revenue. Councillors, we've sat through a really tough budget, and I know this council is going to make some very big decisions moving forward where we haven't even been able to lower our operational expenses. And this should not be about financial recognition and about getting more money out of our residents. We know our visitors to the coast, in terms of what our tourist economy brings, is in the millions of dollars. And for me, it is a park that they live in harmony. They have for decades. They are a functional part of our community. There was a comment from one of the members of the Caravan Parks Australia that we had an on-site meeting, and he said to us, this is a unique situation that you have here in the park, a unique situation. We haven't even gone into the process of engaging and understanding what that land management plan will be, but I acknowledge it's up to council in regards to how we manage that land. And the Caravan Park Policy of 2013, and then the Caravan Park Policy of the Department of Natural Resources and Mines of 2020, specifically states the same line item in regards to affordable and semi-permanent housing. In addition, caravan parks provide a valuable source of affordable semi-permanent housing, and there is a growing need for the state to maintain and facilitate the expansion of existing supplies of this type of housing stock. There is support from the state for this type of use at Dicky Beach. I acknowledge Councillor Tim talking about a single parent and growing up. I know exactly what you mean. This is highly emotive. Being a child of a family and waiting for an alcoholic father to fall asleep before we go home, I know how hard it is. I've lived in Housing Commission in Victoria, and that was my upbringing. So I do bring that acknowledgement to council where I respect where we all come from. We all come from somewhere, and everyone has a story here. As we've heard, there's been people that have borrowed everything. They couldn't get a loan off the bank, but they've gone to the families to borrow the money. There's a gentleman in there that used his whole inheritance from his dad to get into the park because he lost his business. He lost access to his kids. There's a lady in there with a child that needs specialist care. What if she has to move away to get specialist care for that child? She is stuck in that park. She cannot move away, and there will be no financial contribution. We must look at some sort of financial contribution once the tenancy ends. This report has hastily been brought to council. And stand here today, I'm embarrassed as a local divisional councillor that we did not address this much earlier. It's like a lot of legacy decisions that we've found, and with I know a new executive leadership team and a CEO, there are big changes in this council that we all need to see, of decisions that we've made in previous councils, and I was part of the previous term. But I stand here today and I plead with you, please support this motion. If there's ever one motion I ever bring to this council, this is it. We are dealing with lives of people in our community. We are dealing with people in positions that are not sitting here as we are all as councillors. I'm fortunate to live here. I love the Sunshine Coast. It's delivered me a lifestyle that I never have dreamed of that I would have actually achieved. But we must look at similar outcomes Madam Mayor. We must look at similar outcomes of other local governments. There's no other additions in this report about other councils that have actually had to deal with long-term tenancies in caravan parks and how they dealt with, and some recommendations. We haven't workshopped it. I just want to finish. Please support this motion here today. I beg you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Councillors, I will now put the motion to the vote. This is the motion as it stands before us that Councillor Landsberg presented this morning. All those in favour, and I note that Councillor Winston has left the meeting. So, all those in favour, please raise your hand. That is Councillor Landsberg, Councillor Natoli, Councillor Dixon and Mayor Natoli. Those against, please raise your hand. Councillor Broderick, Councillor Burns, Councillor Hungerford, Councillor Bunnag, Councillor Suarez and Councillor Law. The motion is defeated. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Law, you indicated you were going to move. Oh, Councillor Bunnag. Councillor Bunnag.
Move the officer's recommendation.
Second the motion.
Okay, so Councillor Bunnag has moved the original officer recommendation, seconded by Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Bunnag will speak to this original officer recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll speak briefly. I appreciated the discussion amongst the councillors today. It's been passionate and hard-hitting. Not even going to talk about finances. It's not really something to talk about today from my perspective. I want to touch on something that Councillor Dixon said, and I appreciate that he and Councillor Landsberg acknowledged the decision-making previously and acceptance of that responsibility. I guess the step for me that I bring to this is that when a bad decision's made, you try and fix it and you make a decision that reflects what you think is the right process, and everyone has a different version of that. You know, we talked about people. You know, I got out yesterday and went to the Majimba Holiday Park and talked to residents there, and you can see how it actually works. There's 10 permanent dwellings, 2 of which at the moment are vacant because we had 2 residents die there recently. One died in the holiday park, one died in hospital. And the reality is, one of those homes will be demolished because it is in such disrepair and is now with the public trustee because that person had no relatives. The other person, their family is now having to go through the decision-making process about what they actually do with that existing home on that site. And scattered in amongst that were a number of holiday makers trying to enjoy their holiday. So the reality is that this is not an easy decision. It hasn't been an easy discussion at all. But when I think of the people that I spoke to yesterday, I spoke to a husband and wife. His name was Vern, and he came out and said to me, this was the only place that we could afford in those days, and we recognised in 2005, when natural attrition was applied to this park, that we wouldn't be able to provide anything to our children. And as hard as that is, they have lived there since 1996. He walked out, showed me the part on the concrete where they put their name on that slab with the sewer, and the reality is they have lived there ever since. I spoke to another lady who bought into Majimba 5 months before natural attrition kicked in. And she said to me at the time, horrible decision that they had to make. But she is still there. Her family is still there. And the reality of it is, we are not kicking people out. That's what this boils down to. And I don't want there to be a misconception in the community that this means that 82 dwellings will go. But when we talk about how we treat people, I can't just consider the 82 dwellings in Dicky Beach. I consider the 14 in Cotton Tree, the 10 in Coolum, the 10 in Majimba, and the 5 at Maroochydore. How do I go and door knock each of those people and say that half an hour down the road, we're treating people differently? I can't. And Councillor Dixon has quoted Councillor Dwyer, I think, the standard you walk past is the standard that you accept. Can't walk past this. And as much as it pains me to have to do this, I'm supporting the officer's recommendation. There's been enough debate, but appreciate further comments from everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Bunnag. Councillor Hungerford.
Through you, Madam Mayor. It is a tough decision, but we're making responsible decisions. We're now bringing us into uniformity of how we treat all the sites across the local government area. So we're treating everyone fairly, equally and respectfully. Because if you don't have consistency, you don't have credibility. And if we had gone on the path of having one group being treated differently to everyone else, we don't have credibility. So this is about us being responsible and bringing it into one management practice and everyone being treated respectfully and equally. And that's what this is about, and I support this wholeheartedly. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Burns.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. It's actually just a question coming out of this, and it is actually for you. Will there be a deliberate intention by this council to advocate to the state government to consider all forms of state land and others to ensure that we have an increase in affordable housing here on the Sunshine Coast, and challenges to the way that they recognise and understand and manage their land through the Land Act?
Thank you, Councillor Burns, for the question, because as you alluded to earlier, Councillor Law and I, and also Councillor Banag, through our meetings and through our forums with the Housing Minister, have been working towards identifying state land or council land and just looking at what other options are possible. Because as I mentioned, the way we've always been doing things over the last decade or two aren't working right now, and I believe that there needs to be an alternate view. Something needs to change from the state and from federal government to work towards that aim. So exactly what that looks like has not yet been determined, but I do commit to advocating to the state to look at alternate models, to look at their land and to look at ways that we can increase affordable housing. And also we need more crisis accommodation. There's a lot we need on the Sunshine Coast.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And maybe just a follow-up question to that. Have the state been clear in articulating their direction in regards to affordable housing here on the Sunshine Coast, or supportive accommodation and that sort of thing? Have they been proactive and strong with you in regards to the need here on the Sunshine Coast?
Thank you for the question. They certainly have been talking about taking alternate steps, and we certainly have been working through what that might look like. It is still early in the stages of that, though.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay. No further councillors to speak. Councillor Banag, would you like to close? No? Okay. I'll now put the motion to the vote, noting that this is the original officer recommendation as published in the paper. Those councillors in favour, please raise your hand. Councillors Broderick, Burns, Hungerford, Banag, Suarez and Law, and those against. Councillors Landsberg, Natoli, Dixon and Mayor Natoli. The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr Collins. Mr Colley, thank you. And thank you, members of the gallery. Okay, we'll now move to item 8.1. We'll keep going. Okay. And I note that there is some movement in the gallery, so thank you. And we will have Mr Wilson and Mr Connell joining us any moment. Here they are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Over to you, Mr Wilson. Yeah. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you very much for your time. Today I'm presenting on Council's Shorebird Conservation Plan for 2025 to 2030. Imagine running a marathon, not just once, but 250 times in a row. That's the journey some of our migratory shorebirds make each year, flying from the Arctic tundra across Asia to the Sunshine Coast. When they arrive, they're not just visiting, they're exhausted athletes in desperate need of rest and recovery. But each time they're disturbed, they burn critical energy needed for survival. Imagine collapsing at the finishing line, only to be jolted awake and told to get up and run again and again and again. This is the reality for these birds, and many don't make it. Nearly half of Australia's shorebird species are now listed as threatened with extinction under federal legislation. Their decline is real and it is urgent. The Sunshine Coast is one of only 5 biosphere reserves in Australia and part of a unique cluster of 3 in southeast Queensland. This global recognition by the United Nations underpins our commitment here on the Sunshine Coast to balance the environmental, social, cultural and economic needs of today without compromising the ability to meet the needs of future generations. Council has a legal obligation to protect shorebirds and their habitats. Federal legislation connects us to international agreements like the Ramsar Convention and treaties with China, Japan and South Korea, all critical links along the flyways. State legislation protects critical habitat whether or not the birds are currently present. This shorebird conservation plan provides a clear pathway for Council to meet these obligations and to deliver on our broader sustainability goals. Our coastline spans more than 60 kilometres of beaches, estuaries and rocky headlands. If you look closely at the map in the middle of the screen, you might see small pink patches scattered along the coast. This is the habitat critical for the survival of these shorebirds. These intertidal zones are not interchangeable. They are essential. Shorebirds rely on them to feed, rest, excuse me, and raise their young. Without them, they cannot survive. Balancing population growth and recreational use with habitat protection is vital. For shorebirds, it may mean the difference between survival and extinction. The Shorebird Conservation Plan 2025 to 2030 is evidence-based, shaped by community input and aligned with our biosphere values and the goals of our major regional strategies. Its vision is to support the recovery of sustainable shorebird populations by reducing threats, protecting habitat and engaging with an informed and empowered community. It recognises our coastline as a shared space and provides guidance to balance conservation with recreation. The plan prioritises 5 key outcomes: protecting habitat through mapping, signage and seasonal access restrictions, approaches that are already working in neighbouring local government areas, including Bundaberg, Noosa and Moreton Bay. Reducing disturbance to the birds in critical areas, especially high tide roosts, using education, signage and compliance. Engaging with the community through education, campaigns, tourism partnerships and meaningful collaboration with traditional owners. Strengthening research partnerships to ensure our actions remain effective and grounded in good science. And collaborate locally and globally to reflect our shared responsibility for these iconic species. This plan was shaped through extensive community consultation with internal officers, industry experts, state government, First Nations representatives and community stakeholders. Over 700 responses were received during the 4-week consultation period, showing strong engagement for a species-specific plan. Importantly, the feedback came from a broad cross-section of our community and the majority supported the plan's direction. On our shores right now are the world's greatest travellers. All they ask for is a little space to rest. Thank you for your time, Madam Mayor and Councillors. Recommendations are on your screen for consideration.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Wilson. Councillors, Councillor Suarez, move. Councillor Suarez, seconded. Councillor Natoli. Thank you. Councillor Suarez.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Brad. And I'd also like to thank Simone and Adam for all the work that's been done so far. I reckon shorebirds are the endurance athlete introverts of the animal kingdom. They prefer quiet, undisturbed spaces, minimalist lifestyles. They're highly observant and cautious, and they only seasonally socialise. They spend as much time flying as they do breeding, feeding and raising their chicks. Our cohort of councillors have all been briefed a number of times on the criticality of shorebird numbers, the importance of their habitats and what factors threaten the birds and their habitats. These things are all evidence-based facts and are in the report and, in my opinion, need no debate. What we're being asked to do today is to endorse a strategic plan, that builds on the existing efforts of Council in relation to the shorebirds. The internal operational plan has guided Council's activities over the past 4 years and has laid the foundation for protecting threatened migratory and resident shorebirds. The key actions from that have been mapping, monitoring, education and community engagement. The reason I stand today to support a strategic shorebird conservation plan is because a strategic plan offers the following benefits over and above an internal operational plan. It aligns with our regional and international priorities. It enables cross-departmental collaboration, particularly between planning, environment, infrastructure and community teams. It helps unlock funding and partnership opportunities, as strategic plans are often the prerequisite for state or federal funding, and strategic plans attract collaboration with universities, NGOs and conservation groups. It also, and probably more importantly, elevates Council's leadership and accountability. It demonstrates our commitment to biodiversity and environmental stewardship, just as we have done for turtles, macropods and koalas. It provides transparency, unlike an internal operational plan, which may lack visibility and broader accountability. It sets clear actions and success indicators, which enables regular review and improvement. And it also builds community trust and engagement by seeing visible action as a result of consultation, which provides shared ownership of outcomes and hopefully successes. What this plan will do for Council and our community is provide clear vision and direction, transparency and accountability, ensure better decision making by avoiding inconsistent approaches and improving our resource allocation. I look for your support for the officer's recommendation before you.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Councillor Natoli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I want to thank Brad, Adam and Simone. Over the years, I've just seen the tremendous work that they put in trying to bring the attention of shorebirds to our community. And with their determination, we've made small inroads, but not gone far enough. I want to start by asking this question. What is the importance of preserving our natural treasures for the future generations? Why do we do it? Today we have the Shorebird Conservation Plan before us. We went out to public consultation and we got a mixed response. 34% were either against or strongly against this plan. It appears to me there are many who simply don't understand or just don't care about our environment and the impacts we have on it. They only care about their needs, even if the environment and our shorebirds suffer. Shorebirds are an integral part of our ecosystem, playing a crucial role in maintaining the health of our coastlines. They help control insect population, contribute to seed dispersal, and serve as indicators of environmental health. The Sunshine Coast is a critical habitat for both the resident and migratory shorebirds. Resident shorebirds, like the beach stone curlew, call our shores home year-round, while the migratory shorebirds, like the far eastern curlew, travel thousands of kilometres each year, relying on our coast for rest and refuelling. However, these birds face numerous threats, including habitat loss, climate change, and human disturbances. Human activities such as coastal development, recreational activities, and especially dogs off leash, can disrupt their habitats and cause significant stress. Dogs in particular can have a devastating impact on shorebirds. When dogs chase or approach shorebirds, they trigger a flight response, forcing the birds to expend valuable energy reserves. This can be particularly detrimental to migratory shorebirds, which rely on specific stopover sites to refuel and recharge for their long journeys. If they don't rest and refuel, they will simply not make it and perish. That's why a shorebird conservation plan is essential. This plan would outline strategies to protect and conserve shorebird population, their habitats, migratory pathways, It would also engage the community in conservation efforts, promoting a sense of ownership and responsibility through targeted education programs. The Sunshine Coast is just a small part of the world's efforts to protect the decline in shorebirds. There are many challenges, but we must, and I stress, we must do our part as best as we can to make a difference. Today is a start. However, could we do more? The answer, I believe, is yes. If I personally had my way, I would ban all dogs from beaches, and you might ask why do that to our beloved poochers and their owners. It's simple. The beaches and the tidal zones are the natural environment for shorebirds. It's not the natural environment for dogs. The two just don't mix. I know many would disagree, but we know we can't protect the shorebirds if we continue to allow dogs on our beaches when the migratory shorebirds are here. I started by asking the question, why do we need to do this? It's because we as humans have impacted our environment and the species which rely on this natural environment. And if we don't take action now, for our future generations have little to thank us for. We have a responsibility under federal and state laws to protect the shorebirds, and we as a community need to own that responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Natoli. Councillor Burns.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm rising in support of this. I think a couple of things that we on the sunny coast know, and this is repeated time and time again, that our community rates so highly their access to and love of our natural environment. It's again and again. On an online meeting last night, it was stated again very, very strongly by the people on that meeting how important the environment is. The decisions and actions of this council over many years have actually really led to a really strong, healthy and a really crazy mix of biodiversity across the region, and that's because of plans like this. Every August, September, we love to go line our beachfronts and look at the migrant humpback whales heading back south with the calves. We celebrate it, we enjoy it. Every year, November to April, we start to just chomp at the bit to see the turtles coming and nesting. That's because of a plan like this. We recently had the great news around a really strong, healthy community of koalas up in Reesville. That is because we have a koala conservation plan. We have our macropod conservation plan because we recognise that people love kangaroos and we want to value them and their role and their place in our environment. This plan does exactly the same as those things. It strengthens our connection to the value of our environmental spaces that we know our community want, we know our community love. This plan supports what might not always be the most spectacular, the most recognisable, the most grand of our creatures, but these birds, particularly the migratory shorebirds, are an incredible, incredible creature. And so for us as a council to create a consistent and coherent action that really allows us to protect them and conserve their habitat is actually something even more for us to celebrate as a region. There is a consistency and a coherency for us to do this, and it actually aligns with community wishes. And I really strongly support that today. I'm grateful too to Brad, Simone and the whole team for the work that they've done in bringing this to us. And I'm also grateful to see the implementation plan too attached in the papers, and really recognise that provides a certainty and clarity as to the work that this council will be doing. And it will help our community understand at the annual reporting time how we've actually tracked against those measures. So thanks to everyone, and I look forward to seeing an increase in the number of our shorebird population over the coming years as we get to manage and monitor the data. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Councillor Law.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you so much for the report, and particularly the implementation plan that goes with the report. It's just essential, as we've already heard expressed extremely well, that we implement this plan so that we can protect the visitors who come here every year. And they get here in a way that many of our other visitors don't. They get here under their own effort, flying 11,000 kilometres, thereabouts, non-stop. Now, there's only one route I'm aware of that will achieve that us humans can do, to do non-stop to the other side of the world, and that's between Perth and London. And even that particular trip comes under difficulties from time to time when the technology goes wrong or the plane doesn't quite make it. And if you happen to get a ticket on one of those flights, you just sit there. And depending on how much you paid for your ticket, depends on how much luxury you get to enjoy and how much food you get on the way and how much you get to drink. Whereas these birds do it non-stop without refuelling. That is a monumental achievement in anyone's terms. And it is a requirement on all of us to care for and protect the land and the places that they need to feed so that they can recover and so that they can do it all again. And so that with a lot of hope, but with this plan, a lot of hard work and dedication and effort and investment, we will protect them and look after them so that they can continue to thrive and grow in numbers. And they need to grow in numbers rapidly because we will go from endangered to extinct quicker than anyone cares to know or consider. Because unfortunately, we're not learning well enough. As I mentioned at the acknowledgement of country, we are not learning well enough from the people who cared for this land and all of its creatures in the ocean and on the shores and in the trees and in the hinterland. We do not care for them well enough as our ancestors did. And we must learn from them so that there is some hope for this or these species that come and visit. So I encourage everyone to support this so that we can implement this plan throughout the beaches, the rocky foreshores, where the birds want to come and hang out for their summer holidays so that they can refuel, recharge, and go on for the next part of their life's journey. And I'll leave you with one thought. In the 17th century, on the island of Mauritius, there was a flightless bird, and it doesn't exist anymore, because European settlers took the flightless bird, put it on their boats and ate it, introduced animals that weren't existing on Mauritius, and in less than 100 years, the flightless bird that we call the dodo no longer existed. And I'm sure some of you may or may not, depending on perhaps how old you are and your origins, will know the expression as dead as a dodo. That was that bird in the 1700s that no longer exists, except in those very strange comments, as dead as a dodo. It doesn't exist, is unavailable, can't be used anymore. It is incumbent on us to ensure that the migratory shorebirds who come and spend their holidays here are given greater care and respect than all of the human visitors who come from all over the world in very comfortable circumstances. It's up to us to care for these guys who fly non-stop 11,000 kilometres to be here with us. We need to look after them, and I urge everyone to support this. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Bunnag.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a few questions to start through you, please. Mr. Wilson, can you talk me through some of the contextual setting for this? So, data. Can you tell me, in a Mauritius North Shore perspective, the importance of that area, particularly on the northern side of the river mouth as it currently stands, the significance of that as a high tide roost site historically?
Through the Chair, thank you very much for your question, Councillor Bunnag. I guess data has been collected over many, many years, if not decades, by local bird groups and followed on by council officers as well. This is all through the Mauritius River. Historically, the birds used a lot more roost sites than there currently exists. The significance of the Mauritius North Shore, as we call it, site was it was its the bird's primary roost site for many, many years, until sort of the early 2000s. We saw a significant decline in birds that were using that particular site, and to the point where some of the local birding groups that were collecting data at that site decided that it was fruitless to continue. These birds now use whatever high tide roost sites are available, notably Goat Island. The issue with that is that there is only really one site there at present for them to go at high tide, and disturbance at that site is pretty prevalent as well.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Through the chair, so you talked about the use of Goat Island at the moment as the main roost site. Can you talk us through the reason why it's important to have more than one roost site from a disturbance perspective, given the positioning of Goat Island?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question. Through the chair. The importance of protecting Goat Island as the primary site at the moment is still there, and is through the plan, provides a lot of levers to support that protection of the site. That site is under the jurisdiction of the state government, so there's a lot of collaboration that will go on. The importance of having a secondary site is, in particular, the Maroochy North Shore site, given that it was the most historically important site, is that when disturbance to the birds occurs on Goat Island, bless you, they need a secondary site. They cannot take flight, fly around, and then return to the same site if that disturbance is already or still remaining present, I guess. Providing a secondary site there is important because there is currently nowhere else for them to go, and this is the problem.
Thank you. And through the chair, another question. We talked about data, so we talked about the waders group who have, over time, I guess, not been able to identify shorebird activity on the Maroochy North Shore site from a high tide roost environment since about 2004, is the data that we have. How will data be collected if this plan is endorsed, and how will we be able to disseminate that into the community for awareness of, tracking the effectiveness of these areas?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair. The data collection will continue as it is as present. Council officers are going out and completing surveys through the shorebird seasons. We'll also continue to work with those groups like the Queensland Wader Study Group to continue their efforts and do everything possible in our power to support those groups in continuing and I guess improving their data collection. The plan also encourages citizen science sort of campaigns, not dissimilar to the Turtle Care program, so that everyday beach walkers can go and collect some data as well, and supporting citizen science in the community is a very big passion of ours. So.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And last question through the chair. One of the big things that was made, I guess, as an issue during the consultation process that I heard was around, particularly in the Maroochy North Shore area, around the use of jet skis and other watercraft that were providing disturbances to birds on Goat Island, as you've made reference to. And one of the action items that's proposed is to collaborate with state agencies and council's regulatory services to prioritise and coordinate compliance and effective enforcement of legislation regulating shorebird disturbance in all jurisdictions. So does that give council the opportunity and essentially a head of power to be able to go and work with maritime safety and also Queensland National Parks and Wildlife to be able to get some better compliance at places like Goat Island, which we know is the main shorebird roosting site at the moment?
Yeah, it absolutely does, yep. Giving us a head of power and a collective sort of plan moving forward to have those discussions, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Through the chair, I'll now speak to the motion. Councillors, I always try and listen very carefully to Councillor Law's acknowledgement of country because he does it in his own way. And one of the words that sticked out to me was custodianship. We are here to care for these lands and waters and the flora and fauna that rely on them, and like our migratory and resident shorebirds. I'm a dad of 2 young girls, 3 and 1, and the burden of custodianship actually weighs pretty heavily on me when we make decisions like this, and my strong desire to not just protect our environment for future generations like Penny and Macy, but also to help improve it. That's the whole reason I actually decided to run for council. I wanted to leave them with a better Sunshine Coast than what I grew up with, and I'm sure there's others in the room who feel the same. Equally important to me is the enjoyment I get, and I know many others get, much more frequently taking our dogs off leash in places like North Shore. And I know today's about shorebirds, but let's be real, the two issues are interconnected. This is an input into the dog exercise off leash area, and people who provided feedback, as Councillor Natoli talked about, are dog walkers. There is some conflict between people who are pro-dog and people who are pro-shorebird. I think you'll struggle to find someone who is more pro-dog than me. I think my Labradoodle and Cavalier King Charles hopefully would agree with that. And I know that the vast majority of our dog owners actually highly value beach recreation spaces. The challenge that we have at places like North Shore is to try and balance both sets of those values within our community in a responsible, pragmatic, and most importantly, evidence-based way. And today it's actually about ensuring that Council adopts a shorebird conservation plan that is transparent, evidence-based, and clearly articulates to the community the actions that Council will be taking in this space. As I said, it's an input into the wider dog exercise area plan that will require consideration by Council into the future. During the consultation process for this plan, I put myself out there, conducted mobile officers at North Shore, and was incredibly alarmed by the fear and anxiety in the community that the entire off-leash beach provision would be closed. And I think this was attributable in part to a lack of mapping at the time that highlighted what was proposed under the dog exercise area plan. And a lot of the feedback that we provided that was negative about this plan actually stemmed from people saying they were concerned about Majimba being closed in totality. And if meeting management would oblige, I have a photo of what is actually proposed under the dog exercise area plan, which is requiring consideration of our council in the future. You can see the red, what is proposed to be seasonally closed, and the shade of green, the dark shade of green, which is still going to remain open or proposed to remain open under a dog exercise area plan. This is a significant offering that is still open to people in the community, but it recognises that the shorebird habitat that was once the most important roost site on the Sunshine Coast and in Maroochy North Shore should be protected on a seasonal basis. It's important to observe and acknowledge the data that underpins this plan. Yesterday I attended an art class at Equity Works. They do some great work, and I met Alice, who's an artist who, by some divine intervention, apparently loves painting shorebirds. Couldn't believe it.
No.
Anyway, I asked her what her favourite spot on the coast was to actually paint shorebirds, and she said to me, sadly, there actually aren't many places to do so because we don't have a lot of places for shorebirds currently. And she's right. At North Shore, the data shows that since 2004, there have been no shorebirds roosting on the North Shore bank on the northern side of the river. And it's fair for people to have questioned why we would restrict dogs and other activities in this location when there have not been any shorebirds observed since then. In 2004, shorebird numbers here dropped off a cliff. And the short answer is we actually don't know why. We have some clues with the completion of Twin Waters at that time, but we can't conclusively say why. What we can conclusively say is that this area was once high-value shorebird roosting habitat, and the proposal gives Council the opportunity over a 5-year period to investigate and understand if this area has the chance to once again be high-value shorebird habitat. In the scheme of our custodianship, 5 years is a pretty small window to a bigger picture, and it's for this reason I'm asking the community to help us better understand this area. I recognise there are other factors at play, but when I consider the data, the threats, the diminishing areas of suitable habitat, and the extra dog off-leash area proposed north of the existing offering that will increase the amount of overall dog exercise area at North Shore outside an environmentally sensitive area, then in a nod to the future, in a nod to helping improve our environmental space for my children's generation and their children's, I'll be supporting this motion and this plan today.
Thank you, Councillor Bunnag. Councillor Landsberg.
Thank you. Through the Chair. Just a couple of questions, if I may, first. Mr Wilson, last year, Council conducted a study with 2 shorebirds. I think we fitted tracking devices to 2 of them. And it actually showed the flight paths of the shorebirds, obviously for around Alexander Headland, Point Cartwright, and then also around sort of Moffat Beach and Division 2. Did we collect any data in regards to the time of the length of flight, the time of where they actually stopped? Did they roost in certain areas from that article?
Thank you for your question. Through the chair, I believe that those were resident shorebirds, Councillor Terry, that they fitted the trackers to, and I don't know whether the granular detail that you're after was picked up in those devices. They were fairly new to what we do here on the coast, so I'm not sure we have the answers to those questions. Sorry.
Okay. Councillors, if you weren't aware of that story last year, I mean, haven't been put up on the screen, I'm sorry, but it was quite involved in terms of where the shorebirds flew, and it actually showed many places where the local shorebirds land. And, you know, for instance, in Caloundra, going as far out to Little Mountain, Caloundra West, Moffat Beach, Dicky Beach, many different locations of the coast where shorebirds obviously land and like to rest up and probably feed. A question around our legal responsibility, and I notice in our legislative policy context that the protection of shorebirds involves multiple stakeholders across many jurisdictions, countries and political boundaries. Australia has entered bilateral agreements to conserve migratory shorebirds with Japan, Republic of Korea. Do we, when we work with state government, because these fall under matters of national environmental significance and protected under EPBC, I just want to understand the financial impact, I suppose, of us maintaining, because the report really talks about us reversing the role or reversing the loss of shorebirds and increasing those numbers. So, 1, do we receive any financial support or grants? And 2, what could be, there's no financial figures in this report, but ongoing operational costs to meet those targets?
Thank you for your question. Through the chair. To the first question, look, not having an endorsed plan previously makes it quite difficult to go to the state and ask for things like grant funding and additional support to deliver on some of these items. And then linking to your second question, the plan in its entirety doesn't ask for more funding through what is currently present and delivered to the team through the Environment Levy. We think that we can achieve a lot of the desirable outcomes with the same funding that we already have.
Okay, thank you. And just for note, I know this plan will obviously guide our dog exercise areas and around our rocky foreshores and off-leash areas, but I just want to, and it was a question I raised when we were talking about the dog off-leash plan around migratory shorebirds or our local shorebirds, and information from the state government's wetlands information obviously specifically talks about cliffs and headlands are more commonly used by seabirds, not shorebirds for roosting. Are we aware of that information?
Through the chair, yeah. Look, the team, whilst focused on shorebirds in this plan and this type of surveys on the Rocky Headlands, there's a lot of community groups out there as well that get a lot of data on those shorebirds and seabirds that roost and rest on the Rocky Headlands as well.
And we talk, just one more question and I'll speak to it, Madam Mayor. The desired outcomes, obviously the objective for us, for council, and it comes with 5 different desired outcomes. And really, desired outcome number 4 talks about evidence-based decision making. And that's in regards to how we're going to move forward, collecting significant data about shorebirds.
Sorry, through the chair.
Will you do that?
Yes, correct. We will continue to do that.
Okay, thank you, and I'll just speak to it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Councillors, I've had a pretty strong position around the use of public use and access to a lot of the rocky foreshores in Caloundra, the Pumice Passage, the headland at Moffat Beach. For me, this plan really is going to guide a lot of outcomes in regards to public access to those areas that are critical for our community. I know the mapping for the Pumice Passage, and I touched on that previously, that we don't know what Pumice Passage is going to look like after $20 million in dredging program and building a protective barrier to protect Golden Beach and what it's going to look like, and obviously more specifically what those roosting sites would look like in the passage. I can't support this today just on the basis that I believe there's much more work we need to do to understand the movements of shorebirds. I understand obviously they're a threatened species, but for me there's got to be a balance between our communities in terms of accessing areas, public recreational opportunities and protecting our environment. Today is probably not that today to have that conversation, but obviously I acknowledge all the work the team's done in shorebirds and protecting the shorebirds, but for a division that's going to be hugely impacted by supporting this document today, I can't. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Councillor Dixon.
Excuse me, and through you, Madam Mayor. It was really just a quick point to note for the CEO, my personal thanks for the workshops that we've been on in terms of the journey. I actually learn a lot. You can probably remember I took a pretty hard line on Point Cartwright some time ago. But this, for me, was all about compromise. When we talked about areas like in Councillor Bunag's backyard, it was about seasonality. It was about the compromise. And I had some good discussions with residents on this journey, and I think most of them, they agreed. They agreed with the logic. They agreed that we need to do more in this space for shorebirds. There was one physical meeting I had with Councillor Bunag and a local resident from, he may have been from Palmwoods, who goes up to the North Shore. And unfortunately, we weren't able to see eye to eye on the compromise. A huge supporter of dogs, would like to see the area open full time. However, I think our plan here is to show the region that we are willing to compromise. It is about the people, it is about the environment. And in fact, I just wanted to get up and congratulate you for your work and for bringing me on that journey, because I have learned a lot and I've really appreciated it. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Okay. Councillors, you're right. Our community does value our environment. Absolutely. We see that coming through in results time and again. And shorebirds are not fluffy or glamorous. And we know that they might be small and grey at times, but it does not make them any less valuable. In fact, it probably makes them more valuable in a way, because they need us even more than the cute animals do, than the ones in the zoos that you can buy tickets to see or visit. And our future generations, as we've heard from councillors with young children, will be looking to us, looking to this council about what we have done to ensure that that biodiversity remains for them. And again, it is a difficult decision. There's always compromises. There's always decisions to be made in this chamber. And so I recognise as well that the people around the table here are charged with that responsibility for our future generations and for their children and for those future generations of shorebirds. So thank you for your work in this space, and I look forward to supporting this motion. Councillor Suarez, would you like to close?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'm going to have to call you out on some of your comments about shorebirds not being cute.
Oh.
The baby chicks of shorebirds are actually quite fluffy and incredibly cute. I have to also, Madam Mayor, reference a comment made by Councillor Law about eating dodos. That was a very random thing, and my mind immediately went to, what if we did that with shorebirds? Well, firstly, they wouldn't be much of a mouthful, and secondly, there's not a lot of them around, so they would be considered a delicacy. I didn't talk about the detail of shorebirds or why they are important, because there is a lot of information within this report, and we also have a lot of educational opportunities for the public to come along and learn about shorebirds, just as I did when I first came to this council. Councillor Burns said that they were incredible creatures, and I would have to agree. However, they are hard to love. If we liken their journey to a marathon or an Ironman event, by the time they reach our shores, They just want to have a rest and have something to eat, and they don't want to interact with other people, and that is why they are difficult to love, because they are difficult to get close to. They thrive in calm, quiet environments and need us to respect their space. Councillor Bunag and Councillor Dixon talked about acknowledging balance and compromise, and I think that's the important thing here. You know, when I don't actually want to raise dogs as this, because that is only one of the impacts to shorebirds in terms of just making them disperse. But, you know, by having a seasonal closure at North Shore or closing other areas, that is not going to affect the mortality of a human who can't walk there for a period of time. It is not going to affect the mortality of a dog who gets to run on a different area of beach instead of that area of beach. But it will affect the mortality of shorebirds if we allow that to continue to happen. So by supporting the Strategic Conservation Plan, it ensures that our sensitive spaces continue to thrive along the coastlines, and the action within this plan ensures that we as a council take our responsibility seriously and we walk the talk. So in that regard, I look for my support from my fellow councillors. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. All right, councillors, I will now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? Councillors Broderick, Burns, Natoli, Dixon, Hungerford, Bunag, Suarez, Law and Mayor Natoli. Those against? Councillor Landsberg. The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Before we move on now to item 8.3, I suggest we take a break. Thank you, Mr Wilson and Mr Connell, for joining us. Thank you all. We'll return in 20 minutes. Thank you. We are back and continuing with our ordinary meeting, and we move to item 8.3. Over to you, Ms Braggs.
Good morning all. This report seeks an exception to dispose of an interest in a part of Council's freehold land located within Twin Waters and Palmwoods for sewerage purposes. There is a requirement for the registration of 2 easements in favour of Unity Water to protect a new sewer main to be constructed in Twin Waters and sewerage infrastructure in Palmwoods. The plans of the proposed sewerage easements are shown in attachments 1 and 2 of the report. All costs associated with the easements are the responsibility of the applicant. The compensation value will be equal to or above the market value of the interest in the land and undertaken by a registered valuer. In Twin Waters, a private developer is required to construct a sewer rising main to support a development within Twin Waters West for residential, business, community and sport and recreation uses. The proposed new infrastructure will run within part of council land at 23 Stillwater Drive, Twin Waters, which is lot 861 SP 115786. The new easement will have a total area of 203 square metres. In Palmwoods, a private developer is undertaking a 17-lot residential subdivision and requires new sewer infrastructure to be constructed within an existing easement in council land at 780 Udlow Road, Palmwoods, which is lot 901 on SP 324774. The existing easement is not wide enough to protect this new infrastructure, therefore a new easement is required to ensure it is compliant with Unity Water specifications. The proposed new easement will have a total area of 2 square metres. The recommendation is for Council to resolve that an exception to the tender or auction process applies, as the disposal of Council's interest over Lot 861 in Twin Waters and Lot 901 in Palmwoods is to a government agency, being Unity Water.
Thank you. Councillors, can I have someone move the item? Councillor Bunnag, seconded. Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Bunnag.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Thank you very much for your report. This is relatively straightforward. This is necessary to enable infrastructure for 2 proposed developments. I can speak to the one particularly in Twin Waters West, which is in my division. Ultimately, decision was made in 2023 December by the previous council to approve this particular development, and as a consequence, this is what is required to provide for Unity Water access to this site. So this is not a discussion or an endorsement or a do-over of that discussion in 2023. The reality is that there is a preliminary approval in place, and as a result, we have to dispose of our interest in a particular easement for the benefit of sewerage infrastructure in Twin Waters, and similarly at Palmwoods for a proposed development.
Thank you, Councillor Bunnag. Any other councillors? No? Councillor Bunnag, do you wish to speak? No. Councillors, I'll put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Ms Franks. Mr Pryor, thank you. Okay, please welcome now Ms Dunbar to present item 8.4. Over to you. Thank you. When you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, councillors and council executive team. I'm here to present the financial performance report for September 2025. The September results includes all the adjustments made through Budget Review 1. At the end of September, council's operating results is an operating surplus of $123.6 million, which is $4 million above the year-to-date budget. The positive variance is due to revenue being higher than budget by $294,000 and expenses being lower than budget by $3.7 million. Key revenue variances include net rates of $718,000 below budget, fees and charges higher than budget, with Holiday Park $611,000 above budget, offset by related expenditure, resulting in a net favourable result for the holiday parks of $215,000. Sunshine Coast Stadium $317,000 above year-to-date budget. Interest received from investment is currently lower than budget by $354,000. Other revenue $1.6 million higher than budget, with notable contributions from waste at $584,000. Revegetation offset revenue received $313,000. Customer response recoupment $222,000, and a bond recall for works of $221,000. Year-to-date expenditure is $3.7 million lower than year-to-date budget. Employee costs currently tracking below budget due to vacancies across council and a higher than expected level of leave taken during the month. Core materials and services $2.7 million below budget, with key areas contributing to lower than expected spending include quarry operations at $1.1 million, property management $581,000, transport network management $409,000, digital and information services $125,000, and transport network operations $311,000. Levy programs are currently below budget at $244,000, and operating projects higher than budget at $369,000. The total capital works program has progressed 17.5% with $50.8 million expended, 940,000 higher than year-to-date budget. The core capital works program has spent $33.3 million, which is $2.2 million higher than the year-to-date budget. As at the 30th of September, Council's cash balance, excluding trust, is $296.2 million, and that's made up of unrestricted cash at $120.5 million and restricted cash at $175.7 million. Council's debt at the 30th of September is $428 million. The borrowings for 25-26 will be $66.8 million. That drawdown will occur sometime later in this financial year. Council currently has 5 investments totalling $90 million, maturing between 30 and 364 days, with a weighted average interest rate of 4.27%. The current savings initiatives that we have within the 25-26 budget are currently on target based on our year-to-date profiling. Work is ongoing to address and realise the savings related to employee costs and the materials and services. Current risks outlined in the report and on the screen. Key elements of the 25-26 budget are based on management estimates and assumptions for rates and revenue charges, which includes population and property growth forecasts, interest revenue and finance costs, which include interest rate forecasts, depreciation, recurrent capital expenditure. Management has used its best endeavours and judgments to determine suitable estimates and assumptions based on the available data, with reference to independent sources and relevant historical information where possible. There is a risk that actual results may vary from the estimates, and material variances will be monitored and reported to Council through this monthly financial performance report and our periodic budget reviews. Failure to achieve the budget operating result will negatively impact Council's financial sustainability both in the short term and the long term, and continued monitoring is also required for the Capital Works program to ensure it's delivered within budgeted scope and cost. And the recommendation today that Council receive and note the report titled September 2025 Financial Performance Report.
Thank you. Councillors, can I have a mover? Councillor Hungerford. Seconder, Councillor Broderick. What a surprise. Over to you, Councillor Hungerford.
Portfolio councillors, it's
Mm-hmm.
our realm. As has been pointed out before, operating result of $123.6 million, that's $4 million or 3.4% above the current year budget. $296.4 million in operating revenue, that's $294,000 or 0.1% higher than the year-to-date budget. $172 million in operating expenses has been incurred, which is $3.7 million or 2.1% lower than year-to-date budget. Our capital expenditure, and we're only early in the financial year, $50.8 million of Council's capital works budget has been expended. That's $940,000 or 1.9% higher than the year-to-date budget. And core capital program has expended $33.3 million, which is $2.2 million, 7.1% higher than the year-to-date budget. That's 17% of our capital works program expended to date. As far as the cash flows go, $296.2 million. That's made up of $120.5 million unrestricted and $175.7 million restricted. And as you can see on the investment there, we've got $354,000 lower. And that's reflective of our low cash balances because of the amount of money to invest that we used to have. So we've only got $90 million invested in that interest market, but we are getting a good return considering the market. The thing that always I watch is the debt balance. We are down to $428 million now. It's good to get it down as low as we can before we start our borrowings for this year, and that saves us interest by borrowing only when we have to reduce the impact on the ratepayer. We're in a sound position, but we have got headwinds there, and we've got to be very tight on our budget considering our low cash balances going into the next financial year and forming our next budget. But we're keeping a very tight rein on expenditure at the moment and how we're tracking. So we're in a good position to do the next budget. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Broderick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, and thanks, ladies, for bringing us this report. Just a few quick questions. We've got the stadium revenue says that we're over budget as a result. So what is that a result of? Sorry.
So through the chair, the revenue above budget for the stadium, they've just had a number of events there in this first quarter, which actually had really good patronage, so higher attendance than they had budgeted for.
Excellent, thank you. And we also noted that revenue was above budget in waste. Could you explain how that works as well, please? Because we were also above revenue last month as well, and this month even more so. So how does that work?
So through their chair, there's two major variances in relation to that 500,000. So 237,000 relates to the domestic portion of the state waste levy, which is reimbursed to council by the state government. So in 22-23, the state made advance payments for 4 years of that levy, and through financial accrual, we recognise that revenue reimbursement on a monthly basis. The calculation for what we recognise is based on the volume of domestic waste that's passed over the weighbridge. So in the first quarter, our domestic waste volumes have been higher than anticipated in the budget profiling, so just resulted in a positive variance for that. The second part, 215,000 is attributed to royalties for the Australian carbon credits, which council earn through electricity generation at the landfill sites. So electricity is generated by capturing the flaring landfill gas and burning it in the turbines for electricity generation. And we have an external provider, landfill gas management services, that then sells the carbon credits on our behalf. So these sales only occur when the market is high. So the making of the revenue stream is irregular. It's really difficult to forecast. So for this quarter, the revenue budget just hasn't been profiled due to the unpredictable timing and value of that.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Thank you. You also had listed in there bond recall, which we haven't had before in our reports. Could you just explain what that is?
So through the chair, when a development application comes through as part of the infrastructure agreement, they will set that a developer has to do a certain amount of works, and then we collect a bond for that works. And if the developer chooses not to do that work or doesn't do that work, then council has the right to recall that bond, and we do the works instead of them.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And just a final question, Madam Mayor, probably for our CFO. Sorry, catching you a little bit off guard, but I was just thinking before. Are we on track in accordance to our budget at this stage? Are you happy that we're on track and moving in the right direction? Thank you.
Mr. Parsons, if you'd come up to the lectern, that's our Chief Financial Officer. We'll come to answer that question from Councillor Broderick, please.
Sorry.
My apologies. Thanks for the question, Councillor Broderick. Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm comfortable where we're at this point in the year, but as Councillor Hungerford identified, there are some headwinds. We've got some savings that are identified and baked in to the budget. We need to make progress on those to achieve the budget results. So, I guess caution is my feeling at the moment, but for the first 3 months of the year, we're doing okay.
Yeah, thank you. It's helpful. Thanks. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Suarez.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I just have a question, clarification. Thank you if I can, Sharon. I asked for some additional information to understand what the reduction in rates revenue was, and there was a great breakdown here, but what I'm not quite clear on is the lion's share is actually balance of general rates, and the explanation is full year rates revenue budget was set based on assumptions that were higher than the end of year actual revenue of the prior year. So can you just explain what the assumptions were?
Yeah, so through the chair, so when we're building the budget, obviously we start before the end of the financial year, so we're looking at April, May when we're putting figures into our long-term financial model. So we could use the actuals at that point, but understanding that we do have supplementary rate runs usually at the end of May. So for the the base for what we put into our long-term financial model. We made an assumption of what we would receive in that May supplementary run, and we made a forecast of where we thought we would end for the total general rates. And that's what we built our 25-26 budget model of. And then for the actual 24-25 general rates, we didn't actually end up receiving what we had forecast to put for that base in the long-term financial model. So, for example, if we said that the accruals, we might have year to date at April, we might have had 350 million, thinking we'd get another million in for our supplementary run. The assumed base is then 257 million in our long-term financial model. But then if you only get a couple of 100,000, the base that we actually run our rates run from is lower than what I had put into the long-term financial model as our assumed actuals.
Hey, that was clear as mud, thank you. I might just ask a question of Mr Parsons in that regard then. Thank you, Sharon. So just considering I didn't really understand very much of that at all, I guess the point of asking what the assumptions were so that I could understand a little bit better as we go into planning for our next budget to make sure that we're not caught short. So are there any lessons learnt, I guess, from doing this exercise that we can implement in our future planning for the next budget?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Suarez. Through you, Madam Mayor. Perhaps I'll just try and simplify Sharon's response a little. The key issue is we built this year's budget based on an assumed rates take for last year, and the number that we assumed was bigger than it actually turned out to be. So we built our forecast growth in rates this year off a base that was larger than turned out to be the case. So on that basis, we assumed growth on a number that turned out to be smaller than the one. So that was the key element in there that made the difference. So have we made some learnings in that? It's difficult for us to forecast these things. So, we consistently look at our models in our process and review those in there, but it will remain difficult for us to forecast with accuracy, with absolute accuracy now. Because the rates number is such a large number, a small percentage variance in there can turn into hundreds of thousands of dollars there. So my recollection of we finished last year's rates, I think it was within or early 1% variance on the forecast. So it's not a big variance in percentage terms, but when you turn that into real dollars, it does turn out to be a larger number.
Thank you. Appreciate that clarification, and also appreciate that we are crystal balling a little bit as we plan our budgets going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, anyone else? No. Councillor Hungerford, would you like to close?
Through you, Madam Mayor, and as been explained there, we're tracking very closely. We've got things to keep our eye on going later into the year to put us in that balanced position for doing our next budget. So we've got to keep a focus all the way through because things are very thin and tight, so we have to keep that focus all the way through. We're where we need to be at this point in time, but we've still got a few headwinds there that we've got to keep our eye on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillors, I'll now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks to the finance team. Councillors, there are no notices of motion today, and as we have no further items on today's agenda, I note the next ordinary meeting will be held on Thursday, the 13th of November at 2025 at 9 a.m. So I will now declare the meeting closed at 12:03.